Wholeness means to me being in a state of joy.
Wholeness means feeling complete, owning my authentic gifts.
Wholeness is really connected. Everything is connected to everything.
Wholeness is where we have access to all parts of ourselves.
You know those times when you meet someone and you click? That is what happened when I met Traci through Instagram. We got on a call and talked for literally hours. Her heart is so big. She hosts virtual groups for moms called MomPods, and her passion is to support women in a safe space that is free from shame, guilt, and judgment. If you are a new mom or no one, her online groups are a must. Traci will help you feel seen, accepted, connected, and inspired along your mom journey.
So my big aha moment came, and I don't even really think I realized it at the time, but I had begun my career in the corporate climate, corporate ladder climbing, spreadsheets and formulas and all sorts of stuff like that. And then I put it all aside to become a mom, and it was really hard and a lot harder in ways I didn't even expect. And I was kind of at my wit's end in a lot of ways. And, I had really difficult babies. I had a hard birth, a really hard postpartum chapter, a very challenging marriage that was falling apart. And I met a doula, and I had never met a doula. I had heard of a doula. And actually, the first time and only other time I had heard of a doula was my brother passed away while his wife was pregnant. And she hired a doula. And I thought, how amazing that these people exist. This is exactly what she needs. And then, fast forward, I don't know, 8 years later, probably, I met this doula, and she was with one of her clients, and they were talking about the experience. My youngest at the time was about 1.5. And I just remember tears rolling down my face, thinking, gosh, I could have used this so much. This is such a dream, such a calling. And I wonder if I could be that now. I knew I was done having kids. I wasn't going to have one. I have a doula. I wonder if I could be this for somebody, and I could just step in and be the support I never had. And I had no business doing it. I was like totally unqualified. I'm like, I'm not a therapist. I'm not even like a nurturing profession. I wasn't a teacher or a nurse or a something. I was a business person. And I thought this would be a good challenge, actually. And I wonder if I have it in me to be the support for somebody in a way I didn't have. And I think actually I needed something to accomplish on my own. I needed like something that wasn't being a mom to add into my life too, just for that personal fulfillment. And I probably didn't realize that at the time, but I more just thought people need this, and there aren't enough of these people, and I'm going to do that. So I set out to become a doula, and I didn't have any broader plans other than that. And didn't even know if that would fit into my life, raising these two little kids mostly by myself. And I became a doula right before COVID. And then through the next few years, I turned my small personal business into an agency. So in my local area, we offer all sorts of different prenatal and postpartum services. We have birth doulas, we have birth classes, we have breastfeeding specialists who come to the home, and we have postpartum doulas who are overnight care women who will come in and be with baby or mom and baby overnight. And other things too, but it's just like this wonderful option for women in our area to get the kind of support that really didn't exist here before that, and is lacking everywhere. Fast forward a little bit longer, and I felt, something's really missing in this postpartum phase. Like everyone just kind of drops the ball.
Right.
Go away. The pediatricians only care about the baby. No one's checking in. You have your parents or whoever that comes in a little bit of the beginning, and then you're kind of just left on your own. And we do this alone, this parenting thing. And even when we do have great supportive, partners, it's still different as the mom. And even if we go to work during the day, there's still an element of this that feels like it's on us.
Right.
Ours.
Right.
our thing to carry. The success or the failure falls on us.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, we need each other. That's what we
Mm-hmm.
really need. We just need a
Mm-hmm.
place where we can go, or we can be together, and we can talk about these really meaningful, deeper parts of motherhood that are hard.
Mm-hmm.
And it would be great if it wasn't just a complaining, venting session,
Right.
commiserating, and then
Right.
you just go home, more
Right.
irritated with your husband and more frustrated with your kids, and
Right.
how that can happen. And so I thought of different groups and things I participated in and some of the elements that I've liked along the way. And I created MomPods, which is, what brought us together.
Mm-hmm.
MomPods is not a local business. MomPods is for all the moms everywhere. We even have moms in different countries now, which is super cool.
So cool.
But the moms meet once a week in small groups. They get placed into a pod when they sign up, and their pod has a facilitator. And that woman, who also happens to, all of our facilitators happen to be moms, they are trained in leading women's groups. And we have a whole curriculum of things that moms need to be talking about. And we're not talking about at play groups. We're not talking about as we push the swing or chase our kids around the kids museum or whatever we do. We just can't do that.
Right.
And we need a leader. We need somebody, because that woman brings the tools and the inspiration and the guidance, and helps you figure out how to process all of that stuff that you just bring to the table and show up.
Right. I can't even imagine. Well, I can't imagine. And that's the thing. But what you can't imagine is, I think that, we just kind of, I looking at it from my perspective where, I'm getting ready to be a grandma, so I'm a little further out, and you're like, I don't know how I did that. If somebody asked me how I did it, you don't know how you did it. You don't know how you did it. And wouldn't it be nice if we kind of did know how we did it? Because we kind of, because we reached out, we had someone else to mirror for us what was going on. We had a conversation about what was happening, like, isn't that crazy that it hasn't come up before, and I just want to ask you, when I thought it was so telling when you said for a doula, which I think this online is like online, they're helpers, why would somebody want support, and what does that support look like, as far as even just with the doula part, and then also with the groups. I think that's a little more self-explanatory, but even though it seems so simple, that was like, well, you're tired or whatever, but sometimes we just assume, we don't really get into actually what's going on to young moms, when they're still have littles at home when it's baby time.
Yeah. I mean, a couple things that you said first, about, the whole experience is a blur. We don't even know what we did.
Right.
I think that's true for all of us. And I'm in between the stage you're in and the stage these new moms are in. But I remember moms who were older telling me, you'll forget all of this. You'll forget it all. Like that was a good thing. And
right.
at the time it felt like, kind of hope I do, but kind of hope I don't.
Right.
So cute today. And, that's why we take a million pictures. So we want to remember all of it.
Right.
I think we forget because we aren't having these honest conversations along the way. We're blocking those feelings. We're stuffing it down. We're putting on a happy face, or we just don't have time to open up because we have to do the things and get the food on the table and then clean it up and start the day over. And we don't have time to process. In MomPods, it's like 45 minutes a week, which seems like no time at all, but it's amazing the amount of process and be aware. And that self-awareness feels really good.
Yeah. So I can imagine that would be such a helpful thing to help process through the moment,
and
through
that little reset,
reset. Yep. Time for myself, know who I am, experience what I'm struggling with. Cause sometimes we just, it's like women are so magical because they just figure out ways to do things that are just amazing. But at the same time, it's like, you had to kind of struggle to make that happen. Let's pause for a minute and breathe a little, give yourself
validate
some
that
grace.
experience, right?
Yes.
Validate it and process it. And then let's get inspired together. We've now shared our experiences, and now we can go back to our kids or our partner or our messy house or whatever it is.
Right.
A little more oomph and pep in our step. And, one of the moms said to me, I can't tell you how alone I felt before all of this. And I don't even know that I was conscious of how alone I felt. I kind of just did this mom pod thing on a whim because you're my friend. I mean, she was a doula client of ours, actually. And that's how she found out about it. And then she said, the feeling of hope that I get talking to these other moms and the way I don't feel alone anymore is everything.
Yes.
Got the chills. I'm like,
yes,
that's what we all wanted to feel. But
yes,
we're feeling alone and no hope and all that on those days that we all had. So things like that just brightened my day. But back to your question about the doula thing. So a birth doula, some people are like, a birth what? What even is that? So
right.
that's fair, because that was
right.
A birth doula is paired up with a pregnant mom at some point during her pregnancy and follows her through her pregnancy as kind of her educated best friend. We like to say it's like your best friend knows stuff.
Yeah.
And then when mom goes into labor, we show up and we help her through her birth. And it could be physical comfort measures, especially for a mom who's not taking any pain medication. And then it always includes emotional encouragement. Sometimes that's facing some real fears or trauma. And other times it's more of just, gosh, this is a marathon experience and it's fatiguing and discouraging.
Right.
Other times we have more of an advocacy role where mom really is very clear on what interventions she does or doesn't want. And so we're speaking on her behalf or helping her voice herself if she's, a lot of people have that white coat syndrome where they freeze up in a hospital.
Right.
They look back and say, I didn't even want what he said or what she did, but I couldn't say anything. So we avoid that. Our goal is to make sure that as many moms as possible look back on their birth fondly and like it was a fulfilling experience. And even better if mom and partner look back and feel like it was a bonding experience and it was something they did and they grew as a couple and a family through their birth.
Right.
And you need a third party to really bring it all together and orchestrate that beautiful thing that childbirth can be. So that's what a birth doula does.
Yeah. Yeah. That makes sense. I remember with my first child, I had a little complication, and for days after, I would just dream over and over again about, it would just, and I, looking back, I mean, I kind of mentioned it maybe to my husband, but not, I didn't know enough about myself to say, hey, this is happening to me, and if, it's like, I'm replaying that over and over again. And I didn't even know what I was feeling, but looking back, I think I was feeling some shame. I think I was feeling some insecurity. I think I was feeling like
PTSD or something.
Yeah, exactly. Like some trauma. And you just kind of let that happen. But, and then I love that too, that it's afterwards. Cause I remember that last time you go see your OB, afterwards. And I remember like I would get tears leaving because this has been my life for, the last 9 months, going to the doctor, getting checked and all this stuff. And all of a sudden I'm like, I'm on my own, what, or that kind of thing. And just to be able to speak that out. And then that's all, it doesn't need to be fixed. But in these moments, to have, I'm sure there was someone in the group that would say, yeah, I know what you mean. And how helpful is that to just be seen and heard? That's it. We don't need much, but
great. Seen and heard, validated. One thing that we do in our pods is when moms talk about something that comes up for them, they then are in charge of asking whether they want feedback or advice or just to be heard.
Yes.
So that you're not getting you tell your story that you just told, and I say, you should probably go see a therapist about that, because even however many years later, you probably have
You're right.
You didn't ask for that. You don't want that. You maybe just wanted to share, and that's
you're right.
Okay. That's again what makes the pod structure more beneficial in my opinion than just a meetup. Because we all have the friend who gives the unsolicited advice,
Right.
the friend who overtalks and takes the stage. And, it just gets a little, lost in translation sometimes. But that
Mhm.
story that you told, a couple things came up for me. One is like, we will never forget our births.
Right.
You can ask an 80-year-old woman about a million milestones throughout her life. The clearest ones will be her birth.
Wow. True.
Clearer than her wedding day, clearer than her children's graduation or whatever. It's birth. And they've done
Mm.
studies on that. That's true, that we hold on to that. And there's probably a, biological ancestral reason why our memories are primed and we're ready to like take in everything and store it all when we're in that vulnerable state of giving birth. But they've done studies on people where they asked them 5 years later, 10 years later, 20 years later about the same birth. And what they found is that if your story was a little negative right after birth, it gets more and more and more negative in your
Wow.
memory. And
Wow.
similar, if it was a little positive, it gets more and more and more positive. So when people
Wow.
say, how come my mother-in-law said birth was a breeze, or my mom always says pregnancy was amazing, that's really true. That is what happens. We look back on it and that one was horrible. This one was great. Because we are kind of made to like rehash these things.
Yeah.
And you had that memory that you replayed a whole bunch of times. Our moms in one of our pods over the summer decided that on their own, they all wanted to take a turn telling their birth story because of exactly that. We replayed this memory over and over, and people don't really want to hear your birth story
Right.
in real life.
Right.
You bump into your friend at like a party, no one's talking about their birth story.
Right.
Unless they're talking to me. I get a lot of birth stories at parties.
Good. Yes.
Pelvic
Yes.
floor issues and you name it, people. I'm like, I'm not really an expert on
Yeah.
all of you guys, but I do love to hear it. But yeah, they did that, and it was a bonding experience for all of them. They felt so much closer, and like they really knew a part of the other person that's usually kept under wraps, and that's what shows that connection. Like,
Yeah.
the deep part.
Yes. What do you think is what are the most things that come up as far as issues for these new moms? Is, some common threads that seem to come up again and again?
Yeah. Well, one thing that I hear a lot for the stay-at-home moms, especially, is loneliness. I think it's unsurprising, but also not talked about.
Right.
Like being at home with a baby, you're supposed to feel so lucky, especially if that was a financial burden to have moms start staying at home. You better be grateful, right? And that's how a lot of these moms feel. And they're just so lonely. And their husband comes home and they don't want to act like they were lonely.
Right.
They don't want to be needy of all that, and then the husbands are out of gas a lot of the time.
Right.
They're doing everything they can, and we were all young families once. Like there's a lot of pressure on the single working person to do it all. So the moms are lonely. The dads probably feel, marginalized or not heard. I've had dads say, are you going to start dad pods?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like,
are you?
Absolutely. I would love to.
Yeah.
I definitely have like a specialty in women's mental health.
Right.
So but it's a great idea.
Yeah. So is grandma pods. Grandma pods
for sure. Absolutely. I mean, there's so many ways that these things could go, but part of the cool aspect of the pods we have so far is that how different the moms are with a joint, and then they end up finding these common bonds. And the things you were saying, the common seem to be loneliness or spousal like partnership unrest, changing the whole dynamic once now there's a baby, especially in couples who have been married for quite a while before there's a baby and they have their flow. Things, just get thrown off balance. A lot of mom guilt, I'm not doing enough. I'm not there enough. I'm not involved enough, engaged enough, reading books enough, breastfeeding enough. You name it. There's a lack of enoughness that gets talked about a lot. And then shame is just huge. We give ourselves so much shame, and we're afraid to say it out loud, and we're afraid to admit that we have shame. And
Mhm.
there's kind of this layer of like toxic positivity, like slathered over all the social
Right.
media, like you've got it, mom, and you're doing great. And it's like, what about when that doesn't feel good, when that doesn't
Right.
hit home?
Right.
So
Yeah. What do you do in that? Like, how do you support that? Or, how do you get women to share in the first place? How do you make it safe for them to share? And then how do you address those kind of difficult things so that it isn't just, whatever, because sometimes we feel like we're going to say something and everybody's just going to go, what? And they're going to step back, and like horror, and so you stay, how to.
Because it's happened in real life, probably.
Right,
Has, for sure.
Right.
There's too much there.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
That's so hard.
Well, we set the stage very clearly in the first session that what these pod groups are about is openness and non-judgment, and that you will get more out of it if you are willing to be vulnerable. And so if you're just coming to chat about new teeth and crawling, you're going to walk away with not much. And so the onus is on each member to start peeling the layers of the onion off. And what we call it a container, this concept that your group is a container, and what you put in there is held like it's safe in there, and it's supported, and every group member is part of that holding, and the holding of the space, and the keeping the lid on it. And it's confidential, that would be definitely grounds for like removal if things were not confidential. Fortunately, like anonymity and people living all over definitely helps things confidential too. But that is one way that we really do like set the stage for people to share. And then after someone shares, in the first 12 weeks that we do this, we talk about all these different emotions, and we try to get the moms very in tune with what is my exact emotion about this. Is that story of my birth complication making me sad? Because if it's sadness, then what we teach is that sadness needs comfort. Each emotion needs something.
Yeah.
Maybe it's not making you sad. Maybe it's actually making you angry because you felt like it was preventable.
Right.
Angry needs to be vented, and it needs action. You can't go back in time, but you can take action. Like my becoming a doula was probably my action for my trauma. And I was mad. I was mad I wasn't supported. I was resentful, bitter, achy feelings. Being afraid, that needs safety. And it makes sense when you say it. When I say it, it's like, well, duh. But you don't think it. And especially new moms, they don't have time to sit down and think, what is my feeling? What does this mean I need? And not just they don't have time, but a lot of them are just at an age where personal growth, personal development hasn't really become a part of their lives yet. They've just gotten thrown from like late childhood, early adulthood to parent, like bam, bam, bam. And so, for us who were kind of in this world, it kind of feels like, oh yeah, this feels like stuff I've heard before. But a lot of these moms are just beginning to start to understand what they as a whole woman are really all about.
Yeah. And it's so much easier to accept it and be in that place when there's just someone there saying it's okay for you, like it's almost like a permission for you to feel it and to not back out with, oh my gosh, like just to be there and hear it and hold space for that. Like that's so healing. That is some of the most healing things we can do for each other, is just hear and give permission. They don't need permission, but just kind of a witness to the fact that this emotion, this is what you need, and that's okay for you to need that.
I think
needed.
The witness word is perfect. I think that is a lot of times what we need, is someone to just hold that space and say, I am hearing you.
Yes.
And I see why that story brings you shame. And I want you to feel valid in that, and also know that you're not bad.
Right. Right.
How far do you want to go down the, process of like me telling you why I don't think you're bad? Maybe you don't want to hear that at all. But if you want to, if you're ready, there's 4 of us here who would love to tell you things we love about you, and ways you've inspired us. And that can feel really good. So
Yeah, I'm sure there's lots of tears of all kinds of emotions. All emotions show up with tears at some point. And I think those are pretty sacred. Those pods are pretty sacred. I bet that's a sacred experience.
I think it is for a lot of them. And I see not what happens inside. I just talk to the facilitators, and we work on the curriculum and what we're going to talk about each week. And I get the notes that I ask for are anonymous. I don't want to know who said what, but every mom does a check-in at the beginning and a check-out at the end. And a check-in is just a word or two describing how you feel. And I want to know, because it tells me if these groups are doing what I want them to do.
Right.
And or if we're just all sitting around chit-chatting and then going back to being overwhelmed or whatever. And so I read these check-in and check-out words, and like, you know, one group, the same exact people, 45 minutes later, will go from feelings like anxious, overwhelmed, lonely, down to safe, grateful, encouraged, refreshed. Like, who doesn't need 45 minutes to take shit like that?
Right.
That's just a huge win for these moms, and they don't really get a lot of time to spend going from one to one. And you could think of a million kind of like self-care cliche activities, like go get a massage or get a manicure, that I don't think would have that same effect.
I think you're right. I think you are right. I think you're right. So when they sign up, then they are assigned to a group. Is that correct? And do they, you know, are there evening and daytime and all those kind of things that they can choose from, or how does that work?
Yeah, that is probably the trickiest part right now.
I bet.
Is like getting everybody's schedule, and how do you even have a schedule when you have a little kid?
Right.
Right now we have 2 daytime groups and an evening group, and we are trying to get like a late afternoon group up and running. Because there's a lot of like need for that. We just are balancing and working on it. But yeah, the moms kind of say what their preferred time of day is, and if they have any specific days of the week where they have complications. It gets tricky with moms. It's for moms with kids up to 5 years old, 0 to 5.
Oh, great.
Your youngest. So it's not just like postpartum, like these toddlers and pre-K kids. But moms who have those plus school age kids have a really hard schedule. I mean, I'm one of those school age kids, and it's like I'm everywhere all the time, and every day is different, and the chauffeur role kicks in. So that gets tricky, but especially moms who are, you know, before kids start all that stuff, they're pretty flexible. And we have great facilitators who are available early in the morning, late at night, and we have many time zones. So sometimes someone's evening is our morning, and that works great for them.
Right. So you mentioned about 12 weeks. So do they go in just chunks and then they have to apply? Is that how it goes? And then there's a break, or how does that work?
Yeah, we set it up as a 12-week program to start, because it's an easy, you know, chunk that you could sign up for and not feel like you're stuck in some rolling subscription you can't get out of. And I know I hate those, and so I didn't want to put that on people. But the idea is that there's so much more we can do after the 12 weeks. So we would love people to continue. And everybody has, except for people, if someone got a new job and then the time didn't work anymore, like a couple things like that came up. But other than that, our original 2 pods did all continue into the next. So we're doing it at this point as like 12-week installments, and each 12-week series has its own goal.
Oh, good.
Yeah. So the first 12 weeks is called like authentic bonds. We're really trying to form a bond, which requires vulnerability and sharing your story and stuff that we've talked about. And then series 2 is self-awareness. It's a little bit more intense. Like the questions get a little deeper. Like, are you living with intention? Do you take accountability for your role? How do you communicate in a way that is taking ownership over your stuff, and also being clear about your wants and needs, expectations, like that sort of thing. And then our next, you know, series 3 is a little bit more like reflection. Like, now you've been doing this for 24 weeks. That's almost half of a year. Where are you at? How are you doing? What kind of like goals do you have for yourself? Do you want to push yourself in any specific place? If not, that's fine. But if you do, like, this is kind of your group. This is where you can goal set and be accountable for that. So, yeah, who knows what the next series would be after that, but that's where we're at right now. So
yeah, that's so amazing. I was just having a conversation about, the Wholeness Network and just, goals and all that type of thing. And what if you narrow it down and all those questions? Who are you looking at? What are you doing? And one of the areas I was looking at, is women. And it came, and my thought was, it was, women, I think the hardest part is, and especially coming from where I'm at 40s and maybe even into the 50s, a lot of women they don't know, they're kind of lost. They don't know who they are. They don't know, they don't know who they are or if somebody asks them, what do you want to do? They don't have that answer right away. And it was clear, that if I were to go back in time when I had those little kids and asked myself some of those questions you're saying, it would make all the difference in my 40s and 50s, because we don't give ourselves permission, or we don't have the time, or we don't allow ourselves to simply know what we're feeling, because if we know what we feel, if we even give ourselves a chance to say what we're feeling, it's almost always brought a secondary of like, well, am I supposed to feel that way, or I shouldn't feel that way, or I better feel something different, and so I love the way that it like transitions into really being clear and intentional with the mom, not just parenting, but with her, that's so vital.
And one reason why this became such a passion of mine was, as I was trying to get this all started and I was looking into like research about it, I found a study from a couple from the World Health Organization. They had done something very similar to this with facilitator-led small groups of moms, and they found a huge uptick in these moms' feelings of self-worth, purpose, like all these things that we're talking about now. And I thought, oh, this is actually pretty validating. I think we could actually change a lot of women's personal feelings about themselves, but also their whole family. I mean, we all know when mom's in a bad mood, nobody's doing great at home.
Right.
My kids could tell you in 30 seconds from getting home from school whether mom's in a bad mood or not.
Right.
And
that's a lot of pressure, but it's true. It's true.
Yeah, both. Right. And so if we can bring the world more fulfilled, purpose-driven, intentionally living mothers, think of how that transfers to the children and the spouse, the extended family, the helpers, the childcare providers. I mean, whoever, everybody is going to be feeling more connected, more in sync, more cherished and loved and cared about if mom is feeling like she's coming from a place of genuine purpose and integrity and alignment. And I think waiting till your 40s, and I'm right there with you, to get there is a detriment to not just you. It is a detriment to all the people that you have been living with for the 20-some years beforehand.
Yep. Yeah. Well, we've talked before about, the things like the fourth trimester and the things like the still space experiment and those kind of things where the health of the mother, it's not just about saying, moms, you got to be a better person, but giving the support that moms actually need to give the ingredients that a baby needs to grow up and be fulfilled, have a fulfilled life and contribute and spread joy and happiness to their surroundings. I mean, there are specific ingredients that human beings need. And it's not just about a mom having to do all those things. She needs the support. Moms need support of all of us. And it's like putting money in the bank, because 20 years down the line, if you nurture this mom and she's a mother of 3 children, I mean, you've just tripled her, whatever 100%. She is, out into the world, right? To me, there's no such thing as too much support for moms. And I feel like a little, especially here in the US, it's very isolating. It's very, very it's a privilege to be able to get support that
Yeah.
really is really necessary, not just convenient, not just extra, but like necessary for a fulfilled mom and fulfilled human beings that are her children.
Yeah, we live in a culture that over the last several generations has gotten further and further away from an extended family living experience.
Yes.
It's rarer and rarer that people even have access to their extended family for help, whether it's practical help, like come over, mom, I need you to hold the baby, or emotional support kind of help. We also live in a society where women are waiting to have children until they're older. And so the extended family that they do have isn't able to come in and play on the floor and run around in the backyard with the baseball bat or whatever. And, they're aging parents, and those parents are not as engaged. They just are, they can't, their health is different. And we have more women raising children whose parents have passed. And also because women are waiting longer, they're doing so most of the time because of careers. And then we get into a different issue, which is like women experience a huge loss of identity when they have children in their late 30s or 40s, because at this point they have kind of established themselves as an adult around this career that they built up, and they have titles and salaries and accolades and direct reports and all of these corporate or whatever things, maybe it's not even corporate, but they have whole careers that they have come to identify with. And now they're just plopped in their kitchen and family room in the baby's room all day long. And they start to wonder, like, what am I doing here? And am I even any good at this? Because I was really good at that. I got really good at something. And now I'm bad at this because I'm brand new and I don't know how. And
and often we hear those stories. We usually hear the story at the end. So either we've heard it, oh, this is how it was for me. Rarely do we hear the story in the middle of it, because it's just, sometimes it's chaotic, sometimes because you don't know how it's ended. I think it's important to hear the story in the middle. Maybe it doesn't have to be out public, but in a group, at least be real about what's happening in that messy middle. As Brene Brown says, that's where the support needs to come, And it's so different between, like you say, a young mother of 23 versus a mother of 30. They have different issues that are valid experiences.
A lot of the moms, some of the moms that come to these pods do so because they're the only one of their friends with little kids. Because one of the moms is 20.
Right.
Like, my friends are still out partying. Not only do they know what it's like, but they don't give a what about kid slept last night.
Right.
And then I have another mom who had her first at 40. And she's like, none of my friends care anymore. They've already been there, done that. And again, no one wants to hear how my kid slept last night. And so we have these moms feeling kind of alienated just because our society has just gotten a lot more varied. And we're lucky that we have a lot more freedom and options than other cultures do. But with that comes a little bit more randomness and alienation and disconnection.
And with that, going back to the ingredients that the children need, though, that's the thing, though, is these little groups can give the moms it's very simple. You know what I mean? Like really
45 minutes a week and change the whole child's life.
Totally.
can't tell you how many times I am talking to moms who are in this postpartum stage and they're trying to be martyrs. Like,
Mhm.
oh, I don't need self-care. I don't need this or that. Like my
Mhm.
baby needs all these things and I need to be there for him or her.
Mhm. Mhm.
And I'm like thinking you're really doing a disservice to this baby. You
Mhm.
think you're helping because I can see that you're struggling and all you
Mhm.
want to do is go cry in the pantry. And
Right.
you could bring a much happier, more fulfilled, purpose-driven adult into this child's life. And that isn't being selfish.
Right. Because
That's
they will do what they see, not as much what they do what you do, not as much what you say. You know what I mean? So you
yeah.
wouldn't want your child to sit there and have to take care of themselves, you know. So show them, mirror to them care, not just, you know, like self-care, so that they can learn that that is a valuable thing to learn too. It's very, very
Yeah.
valuable.
It's great for kids to learn that they need to self-regulate and they need to
Yeah.
care for themselves and it's great for them to have a parent who feels it.
Right. Right.
That's
Right.
not selfish. That's actually like responsible parenting,
Yeah,
taking care
totally.
of yourself.
Right. It really,
Yeah.
really is. It really is. That's amazing. So you've got you've got your diaper budget you're going to budget for. You've got your maybe formula, your, you know, all of those things, and then budget for mom pods.
Pod. I mean,
It's a
I could talk
necessity.
all day about the budget. I have women, especially with doulas, because doulas are pricier than MomPods. So,
Right.
oh, I just can't afford it. And they're talking to me with fake eyelashes on. And I'm like,
Right. Right.
what, honey? You
Right.
can do the eyelashes for your pregnancy, just that period. You
Right.
can afford probably 2 doulas. And
Right.
what really, it's not about whether you can, it's about whether you want to make the
Hmm.
investment in your own well-being and not just
Right.
your own, but as we've talked about, in your whole family's well-being. And there's
Yep.
a million studies out there showing families with well mothers are all around better. Divorces are lower,
Hmm.
children getting into, trouble or having their own mental health things are lower.
Hmm.
There's just a crisis of unwell mothers muscling
Yeah.
through, thinking they're doing that for the betterment of their family.
Right. Gabor Mate has a interesting he talks about it, but there's an interesting video on YouTube where he talks about addiction and how work, because he was a medical in charge of the addiction portion of the hospital for a while, and he says, talking with these addicts, the 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 first time they did heroin, he was talking specifically to heroin addicts, and he says they would keep using this word, and when they kind of narrowed it down to the experience, it was like they were getting hugged and mothered in a way they had not been before. That
Wow.
was the part of the brain that it was stimulating, was this mothering. Now, it's not to say that, and he doesn't even say, so mothers, pull yourself together. It wasn't like, so moms, you didn't do a great job.
Yeah.
Like, okay, what do I need as an individual so that I can be there? Because a lot of times we muscle through things, and by the very definition of muscle through, we acknowledge
get
that we're
sore.
struggling. Yeah. Yeah. And yes, exactly. And it's like, it doesn't need to be that. Why is that? Sometimes we think that's even more more respectable if we push harder and try harder, and we don't let it
Yeah.
get us down, versus just getting the help that we need, asking for help and getting the help that we need, especially with mothering, because like we said before, it's not just our well-being that is affected, it's our well-being of other human beings.
Yeah, there's just some overall vibe that motherhood's supposed to be effortless and happy and fun because
Right.
babies are gifts and
Yeah.
beautiful and cute and fun. And
Yeah.
so every day should look like a Facebook photo.
Right.
Like we all that we're living it, we know that's not true, but we
Mm-hmm.
still have a hard time
Mm-hmm.
coming to grips with that because we wonder, is it not true just for me? Is it not
Right.
true because I suck at this?
Right.
Or is it not true because everything I've been fed about what it's supposed to be is rose-colored glasses and really
Right.
it's like probably an ad for
Right.
or something, you know.
I'm sure social media is a difficult, it's gotten worse because of social media, because you do see the best of the best days online, and then you compare, like they say, you compare your worst days to people's best days. And I can only imagine that being an extra, like you've got this perfect, when your kids look so perfect and you look so perfect, on online, but you're not,
Yeah.
women are so, it's a gift and a curse. We're so able to, again, come up with quick ideas and fixes and all these things. But along with that is the recognition or the idea that sits there that says it's not supposed to be this way, and sometimes that's to our detriment. Like we think it's us. We think we got to do something. We think it's everybody else has it differently than us. And that's part of what the vulnerability is so special, because no,
It's not true. And I mean, I could tell a little vulnerable story myself, but I was looking through some old pictures just a couple of weeks ago, and we was very big on the family professional photos. Once a year, we did them all, and everybody was matching, and everybody looked perfect. And of course, they got posted on social media because it was our best selves. We looked fantastic. And I was in this, I had a great family, and I presented the picture that people would have looked at and said, she has it all. Like, I'm sure. And I was looking through those pictures a couple weeks ago, and I just had like tears in my eyes, because I remember those days driving to the photographer's studio, furious with my husband because he didn't help get those kids ready.
Yes.
Because he complained about the thing he had to wear that he agreed to, that now I'm the only one steering the ship, and why does it always fall on me? And just muscling out that smile for those pictures, and being, I just can't stand what just happened this morning.
Yes.
And thinking, like, did I post it and say, you wouldn't believe what happened this morning?
Right.
Blah, blah, blah. No, of course, I'm like, happy holidays, or whatever. And we're all our own PR reps. And in that way, we could do a lot of damage to like furthering the stigma that like, this is all just so great and easy. And I'm looking at those pictures thinking, like, my little family was falling apart those years. And I still, hell or high water, we were putting on those matching outfits and going to that studio and posting those pictures and making the holiday cards out of them.
100%. I think my kids saw me at my worst every time we were getting our pictures taken. Like it's just so stressful, and part of it is, like so much is in hindsight, part of it is because I have such a need to be enough, and to look like I am enough. And I wish I would have had the chance. I would have had the wherewithal to stop and say, and to do some of that inner work to say, what's really going on, and to really stop and feel my feelings, what actually are my feelings, and not just what they should be or what I want them to be, but what really they are. And then again, with your second half, and then my intention, how am I doing?
What do I do with the feelings?
Right. What do I want to do about that? And it just sounds so simple, but I swear I could say 1,000 times, that is it. That is so important.
Feeling connected, feeling not alone, being heard. I mean, these things are so important. And that's exactly what we all need and are talking about. And then I like to layer in getting some tools, because our facilitators bring this whole background with all this good, juicy stuff. And we've talked about, like, are you projecting? Are you taking on a victim mentality? Like, it's really easy to evaluate those things in yourself. No one really needs to hold that mirror up and be like, yeah, I really didn't think so. I thought that was his fault, but it's hard. That work is hard, but the value of it is a better relationship, a better, work dynamic, wherever you're applying it, because now you can recognize these things in yourself, and you can use communication tools to have a conversation that's going to get you to an end goal that's positive. instead of just some back and forth. I remember being like, I don't even want to fight with him anymore about such and such because it never goes anywhere. And I'm sure we all feel that way with, a child or an in-law or whoever, our own mom.
Right.
Like, what's even the point of having this conversation? I know we're not going to get anywhere, but we're all just lacking some tools, really. And that's what you can get. And I just think, gosh, if I had these tools when I had a 6-month-old and a 3-year-old.
Oh, wow.
I could have done a whole lot better when my partner came home and I had an issue to raise instead of being like,
right. Right.
Or bottling it up and then just being like angry inside.
Right.
And both are equally bad. And no one really just knows how to like walk down that middle and be a clear communicator without being taught. Like, to so many things you've said, it sounds so easy, but we're not taught that. Why aren't we taught that? Why are we learning like algebra and we're not
I know. It blows my mind. I hope for the future where these small little things become more talked about and accessible to people. That's what, that's my passion, just to slow things down enough to really understand that it's vital. It's vital. It's a human experience that we don't stop and pause and look at. And I think that's so strange. It's so strange that we don't pause. So I love, like I say, I just love what you do and the resource that is. I think it's so necessary. Like, if there's anything that is necessary, I think it's that, it's like you would never not think of sending your kid to kindergarten. So you should never not think of sending your mom to mom
garden.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, we all need that little like intro course, the little thing to just give us that pause or that reset or that presence of mind. And I love that. I love when I hear people say like, this is just so needed, because as someone who's starting something up, you always wonder, is this just what I needed?
Right.
Every mom I talk to, it's like, I so needed this, or I do so need this, or, the moms in the groups, one said, I didn't know how much I needed this until I started. And I look forward to it every week because I always feel so much better. And I don't even think I go in feeling that bad, but I always feel better.
Right. I love it.
I don't know.
I love it. Well, we will make sure to put a link for moms to sign up. And do you have ways for facilitators to sign up, or is that something that you are doing on your, like you're offering to?
I would love that. I have, local people that I know here right now, but I think that my goal would be that I would need more than just that. And so I don't have like a direct spot on my website, but I have my contact information. So I would love facilitators to reach out, and then we can talk about the curriculum that we have already, and does that jive with what their coaching is in, and how does it all kind of fit together? I think that's a very imminent next step. We are running out of facilitator hours with the group that I have now, and I would love that. And any mom that signs up now is getting a great deal because we are new, and so we love to offer those promos and things. And I could come up with something even a little better for people who come up through you. If you want to have a special code or something like that.
I'd love it. So do you have a specific time when they start? Do you have when it's going to start?
Not exactly. No, I mean, we are kind of on like rolling admissions. So once we get 4 to 6 people who all want the same time, we like put one together. The way it works so far was like 2 started in the summer, 1 started in the fall. So we could do like seasonal, but a need, we could kind of just start whenever.
Okay, good.
Everybody rolling. Yeah.
I think I already know 3 who I think they've just got to do it. I have a good friend who she just had her first grandbaby this morning, and her daughter's a good friend of mine. In fact, it's a mutual friend of ours, actually. So and she just had her baby. So I'm so excited for her. And like I say, I've got my first grandbaby coming next month. So I definitely want to put that, it's my son. So her, let her have that support. We'll figure that out. So I'm excited for that. But
For
um,
sure.
when you
We'll
think
do
about,
like a couple free weeks or something like
yeah,
that.
oh, great. Yeah.
Who comes through you. And we do have moms now who are not moms yet, but are pregnant. We have
Oh,
like
perfect.
in our evening pod that are, one just had her baby last week. One's due December 9th. We have Thanksgiving due date coming up.
Oh,
And
great.
we do have non-moms
Yeah.
pods. Which is also sort of a good experiment just to see like how does that all work, because we're talking
Yes.
about a lot of motherhood stuff, but
Mhm.
shame and fear and that's
Yeah.
universal. So you don't have to be a mom yet. And I think a lot of the pregnant moms just really want to hear what it's like.
Right. Yeah. My son, they just have so many questions, especially with a first baby, because it's just what are we supposed to do? And they were so cute. They were like, so mom, do we need a diaper genie? Like, is that something, do we need that? And I mean, I know, and to me, it's just like, well, if that's what you want, like it, but before, it's so unknown, that to have a place that you could ask all these questions or those kind of thing, I think would be great. That's great.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of times the doula does that for people too. And,
True.
or I'm feeling this funny thing, do you think I should go to the doctor? And it's like, well, we can kind of chime in on stuff, but
Yeah.
the pod is like a whole lot lower cost. So if
Yeah.
they get questions answered, that's great. And at least like in our group, you're just one step away from a bunch of doulas because we have both businesses. So
Right.
you'd be able to get questions answered that maybe isn't really in the facilitator's purview, is more
Right.
stuff. But yeah,
That's
I mean,
awesome.
I never imagined that my desire to like support a couple moms through their births would
Mhm.
turn into hundreds of moms through their births and who knows how many moms during this postpartum early childhood time of life. Like
Mhm.
I didn't go into this with some big business plan or some goal. I have really just looked for the gaps in what moms are getting and
Mhm.
just try to like plug them like leaky bucket. Like where can I
Mhm.
stick a little cork? And that's how it all came about. So I appreciate the validation that like this is a real need, because that's been my experience and that's been what I've been observing. It's just like this is a huge hole in the bucket.
Mhm. Well, speaking about whole, like the thing that I think you probably come across in these women is that, there are all these difficulties, and yet there's this extreme joy and gratitude and fulfillment, and and that's what we call wholeness, right? It's like the wholeness of the experience, So I want to ask you about that wholeness from your perspective, however you want to take it. What does that wholeness mean to you? How does that show up for you, or what would you say in reference to that idea of wholeness?
I might cry. This is a really emotional question for me.
Mhm.
It's really special that I have an answer,
Mhm.
because for a long time, I think my answer would have been, I don't have it. I'm broken, or that my family, my life is broken. My marriage did end during that period of life that I'm spending so much time on.
Mhm.
And it's only really now that I feel whole.
Mm.
I have a lovely blended family with 5 children, and I think I feel the most whole around the dinner table. I
Mm.
think I will find myself taking those pauses when we're all there, all of our crazy different ages and different life stories, and not the Brady Bunch. Well, they were guys blended too, it's a bad example, but not the Little House on the Prairie that I kind of imagined my life
Right.
was going to be. But it feels whole, it feels beautiful, and it feels rich, and it feels honest and authentic, and like it feels real. And there's a beauty in all of that chaos when we all come together and stop and sit and have a meal together. That I think is the wholeness for me. And I'm just so happy. You shared.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love it. I love it. That was a great answer. And tears are good. Tears are good. They're, like I say, all emotions express in tears sometimes. So that's good. Well, thank you so much. Feel empowered every day with wholeness videos, meditations, downloads, classes, and more by joining the Wholeness Library at thewholenessnetwork.com.